Hey Kudo, why is your Valentine's video coming out so late? I got called in early on Valentine's Day, okay? Y'all need to calm down. I had an 8-hour shift yesterday too, so I didn't have any time to work on the video, but I got it done now. The deck I decided to go with was Rin from Love Live and Rin from Project Diva. Mainly because I think it's hilarious that they're both music characters, and they're both named Rin. I never said the pairings couldn't be lesbo-tastic, and the two decks kind of have some synergy with each other. That's what I like to call a win-win situation. Or a Rin-Rin situation, ho ho! Happy late Valentine's Day, everybody, and Decklist. If you really want to net deck the deck list, then here it is, I guess. Please enjoy. But keep two things in mind. First, this is a fan deck, not really a competitive deck. It's just kind of a fun thing showing what the two characters can do. And this deck mixes two universes, which makes it completely illegal in Neo Standard play, which is the tournament type that everybody plays. If you really are going to take it though, then all I ask is that you leave me a like on the way out. For the rest of us, you're going to notice that this deck is a little bit spread out. Normally, I run like 4 copies of everything good, and then like 2 to 3 copies of all the staples, but I wanted to include as many different cards in this one as I could, so I included a lot of different options. 0 is our main setup level. It can get a little bit rough, a little bit iffy, but if you can get this set up perfectly, then your level 1 play actually is really amazing. Even though this is a fan deck between the two Rins, I did decide to throw in Miku and Luca to support the lesbian-anigans. Mainly because I think it's hilarious that their Rin-chan fan things also work with the other Rin. You see, the way this deck works is first we'll be using Rin as our level 0 beater, and then when we transition into Rin level 1, this card can support it by giving it extra power. Rin's not necessarily that good at level 2, but Rin is really good at level 2, and this card works with that. And then, of course, when you're done with Rin at level 2, you can use this on Rin at level 3, and that Rin also kind of goes off of it too. So as you can see, this card is a really great addition. As for what it does, first of all, it gives all of your music characters plus 500 power. That's amazing for level 0. You can also put the top card of your library into the clock and rest one of your standing characters, mainly gonna be this, when you play Rin-chan now in your climax zone. And, once you do, all of your Rin characters gain plus 2000 power for the turn. So even if you're not at level 1 and using Rin anymore, when you're using Rin at level 2, it works out really well. Luca's not quite as supportive of the lesbianism because she only gives the two characters in front of her plus 500 power. Either that, or she's just a heavily huge shipper of only 2s and refuses to put that third one in there. However, her Rin-chan now climax combo works really well with the deck because you'll be getting a lot of power during your turn as we're playing a lot of yellow. For those who don't know, you can pay 1 and rest one of your standing characters. Again, it's probably going to be this character when you play Rin-chan now, and all of your Rin characters gain the effect. When the battle opponent of this becomes reversed, you may put it on top of the library, which makes it guaranteed damage for the turn. I'm not necessarily going to say that this is super amazing at all levels. Like, Rin definitely benefits from this, but Rin not so much. So if we're playing on Rin, we're probably not going to get too much use out of this, but when we transition into Rin, it's actually really good. Alright, getting on to Rin. If you have 1 or fewer characters, this character gains plus 1 level and plus 1000 power. This kind of card served me really well when I was playing Disgaea, so I decided to throw Rin in here because it's just really good. Like, if you happen to have this and one other, they're 3500s and they can't be suicided, which is really hard for a lot of cards to deal with. So I decided to put her in here at 3, so hopefully you can draw one in your hand. If you don't get her like in the first hand, and if you have more than 2 level 0s, it's kind of worthless, but at the same time, you can still use it to side attack because it's a level 0, so who cares? I also decided to throw in 2 copies of Rin, because, like, Rin gives the other Rin in the front row center slot plus 1 level and plus 1000 power, which can make a very unstoppable force at level 0. I sort of regret not putting Rin in more, because I think maybe if I had 3 or 4 of this, it would have been more consistent. But, you know, it kind of works all game, and if we can't set up Rin-chan now, then having Rin in the back row is not that bad. It's just that there's so many cards in this deck that are fighting for the back row slots, and we've only got 3 of them, so I just decided to go ahead and throw this in at 2 so that hopefully Rin pulls off. Because when you do pull it off, it is really good. Finally, to round us off, we've got Rin at 2 copies. I don't really think her first ability is going to be useful for this deck at all, but it really only gives 500 power, so not having it is fine, like who cares. But it does have Brainstorm at 1, and you rest this, which is actually pretty cheap for Brainstorm. For each climax, you get one music character to put in your hand, so you can get Rin, or if you're at level 2, you can start getting Rin set up. You already know my feelings on Brainstorm. I think Brainstorm's really good, and I think this is a decent Brainstorm to have. It's interesting because this is actually a yellow-ish Brainstorm effect, and normally blue is draw cards, but this one is search your deck for music characters. Since all of our characters are music characters, it works out really well for us. Now we move on to level 1. Hopefully Rin was able to set up during level 0 to help carry Rin along in level 1. Level 1 is a little bit lighter than I normally like, but we have most of our good stuff at level 2, so I decided to go ahead and just try this level 1 lineup. Rin is really good here, but other than that, like, it's not going to be the strongest setup in the world, but if you were able to sub it at level 0, then this is actually a really strong level. I don't know, it all just kind of depends on how quickly your opponent leveled you up at level 0. We'll kick off our level 1 with Rin. During your opponent's turn, Rin gets plus 500 power for each Rin card you have in play. There are enough Rins that you can play in the back row to make Rin an 8500 during your opponent's turn, and if you are getting assist, your opponent is not going to kill this at level 1. It's going to be invincible. Really, the only way your opponent can get around this is if they wall off all 3 of their front row with things that are too strong for you to take out during your turn. Even then, you could really just side attack or just wait for them to open up a slot and start attacking one of their open slots. I really kind of wanted to put Rin in at 4, but I didn't really know what to cut. Like, looking back on the deck, I probably could have cut Rin down by 1 more and then put Rin up to 4, but I don't know. I kind of wanted Rin to be balanced with Rin, so I didn't want to put in too many of Rin. Of course, if we're going to be running Rin, we need some kind of Rin to put in the back row, so obviously we're going to be running Rin. Rin gives all of your other music characters plus 1000 power during your turn, which is really good and kind of gets around the fact that Rin is really weak during your turn and really strong during your opponent's turn, because if you can get Rin in play, then Rin is a 7500. If you get 2 Rins in play, then Rin is an 8500 and can get around a lot of other stuff. And then during your opponent's turn, it's still an 8500 because you have so many Rins in play. That's the ideal setup anyway. Again, I could probably have put 1 more Rin in by taking out 1 copy of Rin, but I was trying to keep it as even as possible, and you can search Rin out with the Melancholic, so it doesn't really matter if we've only got Rin at 2 and Rin at 2. I think we can still get Rin if we really need it. Speaking of Rin, we've got 2 copies of Rin. When Rin comes into play, we can draw 1 card and discard a card, which is okay for hand cycling and also works really well with change. Rin can change into level 2 Rin during this climax phase, which is really good because that means you can also attack with the new changed card if you've got it set up, or you can put this in the back row and keep it safe. It is kind of costly because it costs 2 stock plus this becomes clock damage, but in some cases it's not that bad. Besides, Rin is actually a really good change target for Rin to go into. Like, it can do a lot of damage if you can get it out at level 1. For our last slot, I decided to put Rin in here. I don't know if Rin was necessarily the right choice, but I decided to go with it anyway. If you play the Climax Muse Friends and you have 3 or more other music characters, which you really should, you can pay the cost of putting the top card of your deck into the clock, and then you can draw 2 cards and discard a card from your hand, which is technically a +1. I mainly put Rin in because Rin has character discard encore, and we've got pretty good ways of cycling out our hand, so, I decided that it would be a pretty neat addition. Plus, like, you can't just run Rin as your beater. You've got to have something else. So I decided, if we get Rin in there, then Rin can back up Rin, and maybe our front row won't be so bad. This also gets all the abilities of Rin if you have Rin in the back row, so this is a Rin that can get up to about 8,000, which isn't that bad. Our level 2 should run smoothly as well. It's a little less bummy than our level 1. One downside is we don't have Rin to work with, but in its place we get Rin, and Rin can carry us for the rest of the game if you know how to play Rin correctly. We'll go ahead and start off with Rin, because as you can probably tell, Rin was the change target from Rin. When Rin's battling against a level 2 or higher and it becomes reversed, you can pay the cost of 1, and if you do, you can search your deck for a music character and put it in your hand. This makes it a little less potent at level 1 because you do have to reverse level 2s, but still a base 7500 is nothing to snuff at, and if you're at level 2 and you can reverse stuff, which you should be able to because you have Rin and Rin in the back row, we've also got a Rin backup, and you can reverse stuff pretty sufficiently, I think. And getting to search your deck for music characters, put them in your hand, I think is a really good effect too, because you have so many cards of Super Encore. You can also rest 2 characters to give this card plus 2000 power for the turn, probably your back row characters. So overall, not a bad change target. Next, we're running 3 copies of Rin. This is one of the examples I wanted to give. As you could probably tell, Rin has character discard Encore, which works really well with Rin. Its effect's only in play when you have 3 or more music characters, but because you have Rin and you can also run Rin in the back row, this shouldn't be a problem ever. This should always be a 9,000 2-soul attacker with Super Encore. If you don't necessarily like this card, then I would recommend taking out maybe 1 or 2 copies and putting a copy of Rin, but I would try to keep 1 copy in. For our backup, we're running 2 copies of Rin because this works really well with Rin. If we use Rin to back up Rin and that Rin defeats a character that's level 2 or higher, then it triggers Rin's ability. You can also trigger Rin's ability by revealing the top card of your deck when you use this card's backup, and if it's a music character, you can give 1000 power to one of your characters. So you can give 3500 to one character, or 2500 to one character, and 1000 to another character. I found myself in a lot of situations where I had a Rin in play, and I had to give 2500 to Rin, obviously, and then 1000 power to Rin to get over another character, which can cause more side attacks, which is good for you. The last card we'll look at is Rin. I mainly wanted to run Rin because she has a pretty decent change where you can just pay 2 and discard a card to pull it off, and it's actually not that difficult. You get pretty consistent stock with this deck, and discarding a card from your hand doesn't really matter because you've got so many other cards that give you extra hand advantage. Again, this also happens at the beginning of the climax phase, so you can do it the turn it comes into play, and you've got pretty decent setup for it because you can discard the card that it changes into. You could also just rest Rin to give plus 1000 power to one of your other characters, which is fine, I guess. It's another Rin for the back row. Rin benefits from this because if you have 3 or more music characters, it gets a little power boost. Rin benefits from it because you can use it to power up Rin during your opponent's turn, so overall I think this is a pretty good card to run. Now we get on to level 3. Rin should be able to carry the game just fine, but if not, level 3 gives us access to Rin, which is actually a game-finishing card. So to start us off, we have Rin. I kind of wanted to run more of this card. I was thinking of taking out one of the Rins, but I decided to go ahead and just run this at 2 to keep all of the Rins balanced. It's mainly because this is a changer, and the change target's really good. First of all, when you play Rin, you can draw 2 cards, discard a card from your hand to the waiting room, which is okay, I guess. But also, when this card attacks, you can discard a card from your hand and pay 1 to choose one of your music characters, and that character gains plus X power and plus 1 soul, where X is 1500 times the level of the character, which is amazing at all levels, because even if you're doing this for level 2s, they get a 3000 power boost, and they're going to be able to step over a lot of things. Keep this in mind if you're on level 3 but you still have a Rin in play, because you can use this to power up Rin and pull off Rin's ability. Next we move on to Rin. I really like Rin because Rin is like a game finishing card, and it's actually one of my favorite cards in its set. When you play it from your hand, you can pay 1 stock, and if so, choose 2 cards from your opponent's waiting room, and then shuffle all of the cards that aren't those 2 cards into your opponent's waiting room. So if your opponent has 2 climaxes in their discard pile when you play this, then you can have them deck refresh with everything except for those 2 climaxes, which leads to a lot more damage. It's also got a pretty neat climax combo, where you can pay 1 when this card attacks, and if Energetic Victory Pose is in play, you can pay the cost to search your deck for 2 music characters, reveal them, and put them in your hand. We need hand advantage to pay for a lot of the effects that our other Rins give, so having Rin isn't that bad of an idea. And we move on to the final card. Everybody probably saw this coming. You can't run a deck like this, and of course not run Rin. Rin's effect is if you have 3 or more other music characters, you get plus 1000 power. You probably already know everything about this card from my review, but just in case you don't, I'll go over it again. Once per turn, if the damage that Rin deals is cancelled, then you can deal 1 damage to your opponent, so it has built-in shot ability. It's also got a climax combo. I didn't put this card's climax in because it's just not as useful as the other Rin. Rin's effect is really better than this because on top of that you also get the effect where when it comes into play you can discard one stock and put all but two cards from your opponent's discard pile back into their deck. So I don't really think this is as useful for getting Rins, but you can use Rin to get Rin, so why would you need Rin to do it? That's all I'm saying. This is our Climax lineup. I'm running 3 of the Rin-Chan now, mainly because I really like the Rin-Chan now abilities, and I also think it's a little more thematical. If you wanted to, you could take 2 Rin-Chan now out, so that you could put in 2 Kokoro, and then you would have enough for everybody's Climax combos on the deck. This is just the way that I ran it. It's also really cool that this deck gives us access to the Arc Climax, because not a lot of decks use Arc because it's so new. And that's about it. When you're redrawing your hand, normally I'd tell you to keep Rin because you're looking for level 0s, obviously, but in this case I'm going to tell you to try to keep at least 1 Rin in your hand because you want to be able to pull off that ability. Okay, that ability wins games. So if you can help it, try to get 1 Rin in your hand and then do the rest like normal. When you're done with that, obviously get rid of like climaxes and stuff and just try to get as much early game stability as you can so that when you pull off Rin, Rin's effect isn't hindered by anything and you have enough to pull it off. On the off chance you don't actually get Rin in your opening hand, but you do happen to get Rin, then go ahead and get that too. It's not quite as powerful as Rin's ability, but getting Rin's ability will help you out in the long run. On to level 0. If you happen to get Rin during this level, go ahead and clock it for right now, and try to get as many Rin into your discard pile as possible so that when you start pulling off Rin, Rin's effect, you don't have to like worry about having to discard Rin so that you can pull off Rin's effect. Hopefully your opening hand included a Rin. If it didn't include Rin, then obviously I hope that you discard it until you got it. But if you happen to get Rin, then go ahead and let that be your first play, especially if you're going first. Ideally, you'd like Miku and Luca to carry you for level 0, but if you can't get them, go ahead and just put Rin in the back row, because you can also use Rin's effect, and it has Brainstorm. But off of the back row, for your front row, you're mainly going to be running Rin, and if you have a full back row, then go ahead and put some of the cards from your back row into the front row just to deal some extra soul damage. Even if you have to side attack, it doesn't really matter, because at level 0, you're going to be dealing the same amount of damage, and you really don't care if your level 0 assists get reversed. And you've got assists at other levels anyway, like you have Rin, and then when you get high enough, you can start using Rin, so it doesn't really matter. Just try to get as much damage as you can, because your opponent's probably going to level you up really quickly at this level. You don't have very much to keep their field of bay. Now that we're at level 1, try to get Rin in play as quickly as possible. If you don't have Rin, try to use a Melancholic to get Rin so that you can get it in play and get its effect rolling. Really, that's the number one thing you want to focus on, is getting Rin's effect off. If you can't get Rin's effect off, then go ahead and use Rin to start beating some stuff down. And also try to get Miku and Luca moved out so you can start getting Rin in the back row. If you can't get Rin in the back row, then don't worry about it. Miku and Luca can carry you, especially with their climax combo, but really, ideally, you'd like to have Rin. It's especially important for Rin's ability because Rin is really the strongest speed that you have, and if you can't get Rin in play, then Rin's effect just doesn't work as effectively. So that's pretty much just it. Get Rin in play, get Rin's effect off, and then get Rin to protect your other Rin while you're setting up Rin. If you weren't able to pull off Rin at level 1, then go ahead and set up Rin here so that you can start playing some catch-up. If you were able to set it up, then ignore Rin, just go straight into Rin and start going towards winning the game, especially if you're ahead of your opponent in level. If you can level your opponent up to level 3 first, then go ahead and just stop using Rin, because Rin will give you a lot more advantage in the long run, and you really need those cards in your hand. But if you guys are kind of close, if you're not really doing that well, then go ahead and just keep relying on Rin, because Rin's probably the strongest card that you've got. Honestly, at level 3, you could just keep using Rin. But we do have access to Rin now, so I wouldn't rely too heavily on it. If you have an open spot, I definitely try to get Rin in play, or if you were able to set up Rin at level 2, get Rin in play, because you need that effect. Once you get Rin in play, I'd still try to get Rin, because Rin's effect is really good. You know, your opponent doesn't have very many climaxes to work with because you're stopping them from getting them. So Rin is really good, but if you need to just rely on Rin because you're able to get Rin set up at level 2, then go ahead and just do it because, that Rin's really good too. On top of that, don't forget that you have access to Rin. Like, if you need Rin, then go ahead and play Rin. Obviously, Rin's not as potent because you don't have the other half of its ability, but Rin needs Rin to work, so I guess it's kind of a base off. If you're able to get Rin at level 2, then just play Rin at level 3. If you weren't able to get Rin at level 2, then just go ahead and play Rin at level 3. That's really all I have to say on the deck. I hope this video was informative. I hope that you see a lot of success with this deck as I have. Really, as always, I just wanted to be as informative as possible. I wanted you guys to be able to pick up this deck and just win games based on what I was telling you, and I really think you can do that if you pay attention to what I'm saying. But anyways, please leave this video a like if you enjoyed it. Those likes really do help us out. Leave me your thoughts on the deck in the comment section below. To anybody who's going to point this out, I did see Rin. I was going to throw Rin in this deck, but I didn't really know what to take out for it. There was that one Rin. I could have taken out 2 copies of Rin and put in the other Rin, but I didn't. Go ahead and just not comment about that because I already saw it, guys. But anything else, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Also, let me know if this video was helpful. And finally, subscribe to stay up to date on the latest Kudo news. Again, happy belated Valentine's Day, and enjoy your card games, nerds.